In the last few videos, we were focusing on consumer. We looked at consumer demand curve. We looked at how we can construct one demand curve, and we showed how we can shift the demand curve through various factors. Now we will turn to what we call theory of supply. This is where we are focusing on a producer. So what is the supply of a good? We say supply of a good is basically showing us the behavior of firms in a market. It is the relationship between various possible prices and the corresponding quantities that firms are willing to offer per period ceteris paribus. If we look at this definition closely, we are looking at the relationship between prices and quantities, but we're also looking at the firm's willingness to produce, because if the firm is not willing to produce, and that is basically, we'll soon see a function of profitability. So if firms are not willing to produce because let's say the profit is not good, then the supply will not become what we call effective supply. So there has to be a willingness for firm to produce the good, and ceteris paribus means, of course, keeping everything else constant. So we're looking at right now the relationship between two variables only, which is the price of the good and the quantity supplied. Now, this relationship between price and quantity, we say it's a positive relationship. When I say positive relationship, this basically means that when the price of a good goes up, you will see the quantity supplied to also go up, which means firms are encouraged to produce more whenever the price of a good goes up. Why is that so? We'll talk about it in a little while. But let's just look at first the supply curve of a good. When you look at the supply curve of a good, on the y-axis, I will make my price. So let's write price on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, I'm going to write quantity. And this is the quantity of a good produced, right? So when the supply curve is drawn, it's a upward sloping supply curve. And the upward sloping supply curve basically means if the price of a good goes up, for whatever reason, firms will be happy to produce more. So they're encouraged to produce more. The quantity supplied goes up. Now, why am I saying quantity supplied go up and not supply going up? Is again going back to the videos that we talked about for demand, that quantity supplied basically means quantity produced at a particular price. So, for example, at price of, for example, $10, the firm might be saying they are producing, for example, 15 units, while at the price of, for example, $15, they might be producing, let's say, 20 units. So the quantity supplied at, for example, $10 is 15 units, and that is quantity supplied basically means, let me write this, quantity supplied means quantity bought at a particular price. So quantity bought at a particular price. So that's the difference between supply versus quantity supplied. Supply is simply particular price. So the difference between supply and quantity supplied is simply that supply is the whole curve, while quantity supplied is the quantity sold at a particular price or quantity produced at a particular price. So when I say supply is the whole curve, this means supply curve showing you the relationship between the various possible prices and the quantity the firm is willing to produce, while the quantity supplied is the quantity produced at that particular price. And we are saying that whenever the price goes up, the quantity supplied, your willingness, is going up. And there are many reasons for that. Let's look at those. So let's write y is supply curve upward sloping. Supply. We identify two reasons for that. One is what we call the profit motive, and the second one is what we call the cost motive. So what is the profit motive? Profit motive simply says this, that if the price of a good goes up, then the firms will find that it can result in higher profits for them. Why? Because higher price can result in better margins for them. So that will mean higher profits, which in turn would mean that the firms will be happy or more willing or more encouraged to expand their output. So the quantity supplied will go up. So higher prices can lead to higher profits, which will result in firms to produce more, and as a result of that, quantity supplied will go up. And the second reason is the cost motive. The cost motive simply says this, that sometimes what happens if when firms are looking to expand output or trying to produce more, in the short run they might find it difficult to do so. Why? Because in the short run, in order to quickly increase output, they may need to hire new workers, or they may need to train new workers, or sometimes they may need to buy inputs very quickly to expand output. All of these factors can result in the cost per unit to rise. And this rising cost per unit, or rising what we sometimes call the marginal cost or the extra cost of producing, can result in firms to not have the same profits. So in order to maintain profitability, so let's write this, to maintain profitability, the firms may actually profitability the firms may actually end up increasing price. So this is another way of looking at things, because here we were looking at how price went up, which made the profits to go up, and that profits are encouraging for firms to produce more. But here the idea is from another perspective, where if you're producing more, your cost may go up, and the rise in cost, your rise in cost will make you increase your price so that you can make the same profit, because ultimately, of course, firms are producing more to make more profits, right? So they're all profit maximizing firms, as we call them. So when you look at a supply curve, your supply curve is basically upward sloping because of not only the price, the profit motive, which says this, that higher price leads to higher profits, but it's also because of the cost motive, which simply says this, that higher quantity can make the cost of production to go up in the short run, basically because firms may not be well prepared to increase or expand output, which makes them increase their price in order to maintain their profitability. Now we call this relationship between price and quantity supplied, which is of course upward sloping, to be also a law of supply. Why do we call it a law of supply? Because generally this is seen that whenever the price goes up, the firms are willing to produce more, and that's why it's called a law of supply. Now, as we said about demand, that these kind of laws are economic laws. These are not laws of physics which have to be true all the time, but generally we'll see that whenever the price is going up, firms are encouraged to produce more, keeping everything else constant or ceteris paribus, because what if some other factors play a role and the firms are not expanding supply? So keeping everything else constant, we will see whenever the price of a good goes up, the quantity supplied will go up.
If you like the content you just saw and all the other content that is on my website, then you need to head over to allacademy.org, where you will find more content, not only of my subject, but also 5 other subjects. So go there.